Florida State will take on Florida tomorrow in the Swamp, and they'll do so without Jordan Travis. Tate Rodemaker from Valdosta, Florida, will get the start. And so I brought on Mary Alex Anders from CBS 44. They're in Georgia to talk a little bit about Tate, talk a little bit about this game tomorrow, a little recruiting there in South Georgia, and whatever else we can get into today. Mary, how are you doing?
I am doing good. How are you? Thanks so much for having me on. I'm so excited. This is like my
Absolutely.
first time I'm able to talk about Florida State, with other Florida State people publicly. So it's fun. I'm excited.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I appreciate you for making a little bit of time. The reason we're chatting today, you have a pretty good familiarity with Tate Rodemaker. You guys go back, as the kids say. Your dad was a coach. You guys have known each other. You know a little bit about him. So just tell us a little bit about Tate from we've all seen the dancing videos here and stuff recently of him on the Twitter timeline and everything else. But just tell us a little bit about Tate.
Yeah.
Maybe some things we don't know, just kind of going back a little bit.
Yeah. So I want to also get this across that like Tate and I, we've never been like buddy best friends. I'm a few years older than Tate. Tate is the same age, if not a year older than my brother. So Tate and my brother have a really, really good, personal relationship off the field. But Tate, as far as from what I've known, we all grew up in South Georgia. My dad was a coach. And it's so funny because my dad actually coached with his dad, Coach Rodemaker, when they were at Colquitt after Coach Rodemaker left Valdosta. So, we go a little bit back. From what I understand about Tate, he's just a good kid on and off the field. He's a coach's kid. He's a smart kid. But he's very probably, I guess one word to just describe Tate is he's just a chill guy. What you see is what you get with Tate. He is so unapologetically himself. And I think, with all the dancing TikToks and things like that, I think people have seen that, but he's always been confident in himself as a person and as a quarterback. And I think that that's something Florida State should be excited about having at the helm as we're going into, playing Florida. So Tate's a great kid. He's a great guy. And I think that Nole Nation is going to love him just as much as they love Jordan Travis. Obviously that's kind of a big statement to say considering, the circumstances Jordan's under, but Tate is just as good of a person as Jordan is. And I think that he's going to captivate Nole Nation this season for the remainder of the season next year. And as we move forward with the football season. So Tate's a good kid.
Yeah. And, the word pressure or, expectations kind of gets thrown around, and he's certainly got a big job to take over. And he may have had a big job to take over next year anyway, but maybe taking over a few games earlier than would have been expected. What are your thoughts around him taking over in this moment, not only in the middle of an 11-0 run, but also with a game tomorrow in Gainesville, the Swamp, one of the toughest places to play in the country, and having to live up to, really not fair to him, some expectations that are on this team that he's going to have to go out and perform pretty well to help the team live up to what they originally were billed as.
Yeah. So the thing that people need to know about Tate is playing in South Georgia in general, every single game you play in South Georgia, whether it's a region game, whether it's a playoff game, whether it's against someone who is 1, 2, 3, 4A, Tate played in 6A. And at that time, it was one of the toughest regions. Lee County was in that region. They won back-to-back state championships, right? And so now Valdosta is 7A. When Tate was there, it was 6A. But Region 1, no matter what classification you are, is high pressured. Tate's used to playing in front of 14,000 people in Bazemore Hyder, and he's used to playing in big, high-pressured games such as the Wintersville Classic. I don't know if you're familiar with Wintersville or not, but that's the Valdosta Lowndes game, crosstown rivals. It's like a huge game known nationally, right? They don't call Valdosta Title Town for no reason. So there's always a lot of pressure when you are a Valdosta high school quarterback, right? So that's nothing new to Tate. And I don't think, obviously, I feel like there would be some nerves with Tate, but he's so used to playing in high-pressured situations and in front of really, really big crowds. Now, the Swamp compared to South Georgia, I mean, the Swamp is probably a more brutal place to play in, but Tate's used to playing in high-pressured situations. And the thing with Tate is he has experience under his belt as a college quarterback, right? It's not like he's never played a snap and now he's being thrown in to play Florida and then the ACC championship game. That's not the case. And I think that's very rare, especially nowadays in college football, to have a quarterback who has been learning from a quarterback like Jordan Travis for the past 3 to 4 years and has played 17, 18 games, right? That's huge.
Yeah.
And in those games, he's had really good stats, you know? And so I think going into this game, Tate, there's going to be a little bit of nerves, but I don't think we're going to be able to tell. You know, maybe I think the part where we're going to see him most nervous is if he has to scramble out of the pocket. That's where I think we could see a little bit of jitters because Tate normally, he's definitely a pocket quarterback. If people expect him to come in here and play exactly like Jordan Travis, that's not logical. You know what I mean? I think a lot of people are going to compare him to Jordan, but Jordan and Tate are not the same person, right? They're not the same quarterback. Tate has been learning from Jordan for the past few years, but Tate is still himself. You know, he's been successful playing Tate Rodemaker football, and that's exactly why he's at Florida State. That's why Norvell recruited him, was to play Tate Rodemaker football, you know? And so from what I've learned from him and about Asta and from what everyone has seen, I mean, especially last year in the Louisville game,
Sure.
you know, he's a good quarterback. He knows how to step into high-pressured situations and perform and come home with a win. You know, he's more than capable of doing that. Like I said, the biggest part where he's going to be nervous is if he scrambles out of the pocket. And that's where I think that's going to be a big challenge for Florida State. You know, Jordan covered up issues with Florida State's pass protection. And I think with Tate, those issues have a higher tendency to be exposed against Florida and in the ACC championship game against Louisville. But that's not to say that Tate doesn't know how to control a football game. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
I think, does that answer your question?
Yeah, for sure. I think you're spot on. I think it's really big that, man, he had to go into, again, I don't think that Louisville Stadium is quite like Florida's, but still a Friday night game in the ACC. Louisville gets down some, again, not like the Swamp, I get it, but having to go in there trailing and lead a comeback. He made some mistakes in that game, threw a really bad interception. A lot, myself included, a lot of FSU fans were ready to see what the next guy had because he was struggling. But you know, shut everyone up by the same token and went out there and won the game. And then, you know, he's gotten to play in a lot of games. Florida State blew a lot of teams out last year, got to play in some rivalry moments. He got to play in the Miami game. I know it was kind of a laugher by the time he got in, but then I think even getting in last week, I know the opponent, I know it's North Alabama, but man, you went into that game down 13-0, you know, and also like, I mean, if you're 13-0 with Jordan in, I mean, I don't think Tate thought like, oh man, I can't. Yeah, I think Florida State knew they were going to find a way to win that game, but I mean, still 13-0 with JT in, you know, and so like he's had some of that experience. He's had to kind of play in those situations. Now again, none of that probably compares to the Swamp. I get it, but at least he's had some moments to go out there and again, very much a silver lining. You know, no offense to Tate, I'd rather have JT out there. Most people, I'm sure Tate would rather have JT out there to some extent, but having the whole week to prepare as number one, like this isn't like some freak thing that happened on Thursday and Tate had no time to prepare for it. So I think there are some positives there for sure. Just real high level, nothing real crazy or deep on this, but just thoughts on the game against Florida in general. You mentioned a little bit about our offensive line. Their defense has been pretty bad. Just thoughts on maybe how this game ends up shaking out tomorrow.
So Florida State is favored by 6.5, right?
Yeah.
And I think that is clearly just based off the fact that a backup quarterback is playing. If Jordan Travis was playing, I believe that the favor would be a lot higher. But the thing is, people are automatically going into this game like worried about Florida State, right? Because they're like, oh, they have a backup quarterback in. Like I said, I truly believe that they're like, again, Tate is not a true freshman. Yeah. Tate has experience as a quarterback. And the thing is, people might not think this is a big deal, but being a coach's kid is huge. Tate has a very unique understanding of the game of football. He is very, very smart when it comes to football. He is a film junkie, and he's so smart when he is playing. You know what I mean? So I think that people don't need to solely look at the quarterback position when going into this game. Obviously, it's a battle of the backups, right? Florida's going to be having Max Brown in. He's a very mobile quarterback, Max Brown is. So I think that that's going to be something different for Florida, and I think that that could play to an advantage when it comes to Florida. But Florida State's defense, I don't think it's going to allow too much to happen. I really could see Florida State winning by 14 points.
Yeah.
Right, I don't think that they're going to win by 6.5. And if they win by 6.5, like people, if y'all want to go on Twitter and tell me I told you so, yada yada yada, going ahead, right? But I think Florida's going to come away with it. I think Tate Rodemaker is really going to impress a lot of people. And I think after they play Florida, Tate's going to be a big talk of not just the town, but I think people across the nation are going to really understand, like, oh, wow, Florida State's going to be in good hands, in the ACC championship game and then going into next season. But Gators are fighting for bowl eligibility, right? While Florida State is still fighting for an undefeated regular season. But I just don't think that this game is all the hype around it right now is literally because of the whole quarterback. It's a very unique situation having two backup quarterbacks playing, right? Sure. But now, Tate Rodemaker is no longer a backup quarterback. Tate Rodemaker is QB1 as of right now. And going forward, next season probably going to be QB1. I don't want to say he's a definite, you know what I mean, just because you never know. But Tate Rodemaker is Florida State's quarterback now. He's no longer a backup anymore. Jordan Travis is out for the season, unfortunately, and I think that broke everybody's heart. But like I said, I think the thing that's going to hurt Florida State the most is offensive line. If Tate is not allowed to sit in that pocket for a little bit, I think that's where they can struggle. Granted, Florida's defense might not be this crazy problem, but as far as skipping forward to the ACC championship game against Louisville, you're going to have to let him sit in the pocket. He's a pocket quarterback. He has a cannon for an arm, and I think people are going to see that on Friday, especially when you're throwing to people like Keon Coleman. I think people are going to see that. Not worried about Florida State's offense. I'm really not. The weakest link is the offensive line. And if you're not going to let Tate sit in the pocket, he's more prone to take sacks than Jordan. Jordan is not afraid to run out of the pocket and go get a first down, right? Tate is more reserved. He'll take a sack or he'll throw it out of bounds. He's not the one to go and make all these crazy elaborate plays out of the pocket. And I think, honestly, right now, Mike Norvell doesn't want him to. Because if Tate gets hurt, then you're left with a true freshman, right? Yeah. So I think they're really, really, really going to have to let him sit in the pocket and do what he does best, and that's throw dimes in the end zone.
Yeah, I kind of agree. And I think that if Florida State's defense, which has been very good all year, and Florida's offense has kind of come alive a little bit here recently, if Florida State's defense can Florida State's defense and running game can play the way that we know they're capable of, Tate doesn't necessarily have to go out and win you the game. Like, he doesn't necessarily need to go out and throw for 350 yards and 4 touchdowns. Now, I'd love if he did that, because then make sitting out there in the swamp a little less nerve-wracking. But if he doesn't, and the offensive line and the running game and your defense can do what they need to do, I think you've got a really good chance to let Tate kind of manage the game, make the throws that are there to be made. I think he threw 23 times in the North Alabama game. If you extrapolate that out over all 4 quarters, that'd be like 29, 30 passes. I think that's right around where he should be. I don't think he should be throwing the ball 50 times a game. I don't think you want to put that kind of pressure on him. But all right, let's talk about this. There are some other guys there in South Georgia that you're pretty familiar with. One of them is Tate's teammate, Jem Bell. I'm going to play this video, and then let's talk about it.
Okay.
A lot of people don't really know anything about Tate, but you're a guy who's known him for a few years. I guess people are about to find out who he is on Saturday. What would you say they're going to find out about Tate?
He's a very competitor, don't really say too much. He just go out and ball. He's been like that since middle school. He don't really say too much. If a coach yell at him or something, he's just going to look at you, not going to say nothing. He's just going to go out and ball. He's just a very high competitor.
All right, so Jem Bell, pretty confident intake, got to play with Tate. Yes. A lot of people were excited when Jem put his name in the transfer portal, and they said, oh, we have Tate Rodemaker. We'll automatically get him. And I was like, I don't know if that's how that works. Yeah. I don't know that I imagine he'd be having the chance to throw him the ball here in Gainesville at the end of the season. But Jem, obviously super confident in Tate, says that kind of some of the things you said. He's a quiet kid, but he's very confident, ready to go out and ball. What do you remember about Jem Bell?
I remember him being a baller. Which, granted, at the time, there were 3 receivers. Jaheim's junior and senior year, right? I forgot the other two's name. I forgot, but they didn't go as big Division One as Jaheim did. I can't remember their names. One of them was their number 1 receiver. It's like he had like, I don't know. I can't remember his name. It begins with an A. I forgot his name. But he's a baller, man. And I think y'all have seen at Florida State. He's quick. He's fast. He can catch the ball. He's a smart player. And, him and Tate, they had such a good chemistry and a very good dynamic on the field. That's what I remember from them playing at Valdosta. And I think we're very much going to see that again tonight. And I think that's such a big pro going into Gainesville is Tate already has a receiver that he's been used to since middle school, right? Yeah. And I think that that's absolutely huge. I believe I have written down, this is according to Max Preps, okay? So it could be wrong. But his junior and senior year, Jem Bell had 980 receiving yards. Now, if I remember correctly, he tore his ACL midway through his senior year. That's if I remember correctly. But prior to that, I mean, dude was on top. He was balling. I mean, when you go to South Carolina and then you transfer to Florida State, that's huge, right? You played in 2 of the most competitive conferences. And I think him and Tate, I think that's so awesome. I think it's going to give Tate another sense of comfortability, being in the pocket, having Jaheim that he's been used to forever, and, reliving the glory days, man. I think that's going to just be such an exciting thing. I think that's something that all the Wildcats in Valdosta are going to be looking forward to seeing again. And I think that that's just such an awesome little story going into these last 2 games this season.
Yeah, it's going to be fun. Hopefully they hook up at least 2 or 3 times in the end zone, and kind of pad some stats. But we talked about the running game, the defense for Florida State, and then truly the weapons that Tate will have. And we talked about all year the weapons that Jordan had with Jem Bell, and I'm up in North Georgia right now, Kyle Morlock and Keon and Johnny Wilson and Destin Hill and Hakeem Williams and Kentron Portier. Like, there's a lot that Tate can also kind of rely on as well. And if everybody else can raise their game just a little bit, it'll make things easier on Tate for sure. So, all right, I want to ask you about this as well. A couple of other pretty familiar and fun faces for FSU fans that we very much are excited to see them get in the Garnet and Gold, and that's Landon Thomas and Cam Davis. So, listen, Florida State fans know all about these guys. Cam Davis, the first recruit to commit to Tribe 24, the 2024 recruiting class, and then Landon Thomas flipping from Georgia. So they know all about these guys, but I want to hear something about each of them that like nobody knows about. Like kind of I don't know if it's a funny story. It can be something they did crazy in a game, something they've told you, like whatever. Like it doesn't have to be funny, but I like funny stuff. So, but whatever, something about Cam, something about Landon that maybe people don't know, don't realize.
Yeah. So Cam, honestly, when it comes to him and his personality, that is the most mature high schooler I have ever met. It's like talking to a grown man. Okay. And I think people have seen that, he's so intelligent. He's so smart. But I will say about Cam, I don't have any major, super funny stories with Cam. But what I will say is that is the most respectful and kind-hearted young man I have ever met in my life. I think if everybody has a son, and I mean this wholeheartedly, you want your kid to be like Cam Davis, on and off the field, 100%. He is literally what he says on social media and what he posts on social media, is all real, 100% Cam. He lifts his little brother up like he hung the moon and the stars. I mean, he takes his little brother everywhere with him. And I think that is just so special to have a kid like that, because Cam is the type of person, when he speaks, people turn their head and they listen to him. And I think that that's huge, huge, huge to have coming in as a freshman, right? And I think people have seen that. I've told him all season this year, I'm like, dude, Florida State just needs to hire you as a recruiter, man, because he is he's the one on Florida, tagging or on Twitter, tagging people, and it's like, hey, man, you know where home is, and he single-handedly has gotten 2 or 3 people to straight up either flip or commit, right?
Yeah.
But I think that's what I want to say about Cam is that is genuinely one of the best human beings I've ever met, and he is going to do great things at Florida State, and I'm so excited for him. He deserves every good thing that happens. I mean, Dougherty County, they struggled this year. He got hurt this year, right? He's good now, but he is just such a leader and such a motivator. I'm sure he was upset at some point when he got hurt, but I never saw him waver. All he did was encourage the freshman quarterback that came in after him and had big shoes to fill. You know what I mean? So that's what I would say about Cam is that he is such a good kid, and Florida State is going to be so that they should be very, very grateful to have him. He's going to be a big difference maker, a big playmaker for them. So that's what I would say about Cam. And the thing about Landon, he's also a good kid, but the thing is with Landon's more of a goofball. Okay. Yeah. There's some things. So I have a YouTube channel at Beyond the Whistle, and in there you will find a video, the friendship quiz between Landon Thomas and Colquitt's head coach, Sean Calhoun. I did this thing called the friendship quiz, and, I asked them questions about each other, right? So I would ask, like, for example, I remember I asked them, so they have 2 whiteboards, and they're writing on the whiteboards the answers, and then they flip the answers towards the camera. And I said, Landon, if Coach Calhoun could be on a game show, what game show would he be on? And he said, a game show, what do you mean, like First Take?
Goodness.
And I was like First Take as in like the sports show? He was like, yeah. I said, Landon, that's not a game show. And I was like, I forget. Y'all are like so much younger. Y'all don't.
They didn't watch TV like us. Yeah, like
yeah,
they just
I was
watch
like
streaming stuff.
Family Feud. He's like, okay. And so that's the day that I found out that Landon is not the best speller in the world. Okay, Landon's not the best speller, and he put down Jeopardy, right? But he spelt it like Geopardy, like Jeopardy, and I was like, Geopardy, what is that? And like continuously the rest of the game, like every single word that he spelled out was spelled wrong, right? And I just thought that was so funny. But Landon is such a goofball. What you see with Landon Thomas is what you get. But I mean, I'm going to be it's very interesting with him coming into, talking about football. It's going to be very interesting for him because he's a true tight end, right? Mm-hmm. And I think that it's going to be interesting to see how he fits into Florida State. And not necessarily how, but when. It's going to be interesting both. I wonder if Cam Davis will play as a true freshman or not. He's a beast. He's, in high school, Cam is a quarterback.
Yeah.
And, but he's been recruited as a running back. So, I mean, he can play both. He's also their punter. Like, he
does everything.
And then Landon, for him to be committed to Georgia for over a year and then flip to Florida State, I think that's huge. And I think Coach Norvell has done a great job recruiting South Georgia players. And there's boo-koodles of talent. There's so many South Georgia players already at Florida State. Ryan Fitzgerald is at Florida State. He went to Colquitt, where Landon is going to school. And then his little brother right now, Brett Fitzgerald, is one of like the best kickers in the state, if not the nation. And he goes to Colquitt. So, but, Landon is just such a goofball. And I have just had such a pleasure getting to know them. And I'm so excited for Florida State, for South Georgia to share Landon and Cam with Florida State. They're going to love them both. And I'm just so excited for them. And I'm excited to see what they do on the field. And, I think that they're both destined for greatness, I guess I could say. But I'd definitely say Landon's more of a goofball. Cam is definitely more of a serious guy, but he's still such a sweetheart, and he'll goof around with you too just as much. But I guess that's the 2 things. People need to go watch that video with Coach Calhoun and Landon. I mean, it is hilarious on my YouTube channel. It's literally so funny. I got a lot of good feedback on it last year when I did it. So
that's what I want to ask you to kind of wrap up. And I very much appreciate your time. But tell people a little about yourself. Tell people where they can follow you, where they can find your YouTube channel. What you do is your main gig, and run down all the things. Plug yourself a little bit here.
Oh gosh, that's such an interview question. So tell me about yourself.
Yeah.
Just a little bit about me. I'm also a coach's kid. I think I mentioned that before, but I am a coach's kid to my core. My dad coached in both high school and in college. He coached in college majority of my life. He coached at Valdosta State, Georgia Southern, and Murray State. Then he went down to high school. He coached at Tift County High School. He was the head coach. Then he coached at Colquitt, and now he is at Lowndes. I have a brother who plays at Duke. He's a tight end at Duke. I have a sister who just signed to play softball at Georgia Tech. So we're about to be an ACC family, man. So it's good that I'm getting familiar with Florida State and I just about said SEC. I mean ACC. But been around sports my entire life. I love it. I was a 5-sport athlete in high school. Basketball was my gig until I had a horrible knee injury my junior year of high school. Couldn't play sports anymore. So unfortunately, but absolutely love sports. Football is my favorite sport, clearly. But I am a sports reporter with CBS 44 in South Georgia. You can visit our website, cbs44tv.com, if you ever want to watch. I know Tallahassee doesn't get our signal, but if you want to watch us, you can go to our website, click watch live if I'm ever covering Florida State or anything like that. But I also have recently started my own podcast, and truthfully, I think I started the podcast too early because I didn't understand how much actually went into starting a podcast. I just started making it, right? It's called Beyond the Whistle. Right now it's a YouTube podcast, and the whole point is for me, I interview a lot of players and coaches, and that's to get to know them beyond the whistle. I think everybody focuses on who they are and what they do on a field and records and all this and that. But being a coach's kid, I truly realized how much people don't see. There's so much more to these athletes and these coaches than what people see and what they allow you to see. And so that's what the podcast is about. We're going to have some big things coming up with that, but that's the YouTube channel. It's literally Beyond the Whistle. Just search it up and you'll find it. But if not, you can go to my Twitter. It's I believe it's Mary Alexanders _ is my username for Twitter. Yeah, it is Mary Alexanders _ It's the same thing for my Instagram. But majority of my stuff, Florida State. I want to take this time to shout out Nole Nation because y'all have loved on me since I went to the Duke game. That was my very first Florida State game, and I just absolutely fell in love, head over heels for Florida State, and such a special place. And so now I talk a lot about Florida State, even though y'all aren't necessarily in our DMA as with CBS 44, but I truly have, really been captivated, I guess, by Nole Nation. I mean, they literally have blown up every single thing that I've posted on Twitter since I went to the Duke game. So I want to shout out Nole Nation because I've had people message me wanting to send me merch, Florida State merchandise. And I'm like, come on, send it my way, but I mean, that's a little bit about me, what I do. I have such a huge passion for, like I said, showing who coaches and athletes are outside of football because I've seen it and I've lived it. I've seen all phases of the game my entire life. And I think that that's something that needs to be shared with everybody. Hopefully I'm able to do that more with Florida State. It's hard, being out of the DMA. Hopefully I'm able to do that with some of their incoming recruits or even current players. But yeah, that's a little bit about me. If people want to know more about me, I mean, just ask me. I'm an open book.
Good stuff. Well, I appreciate you for hanging out today. Everybody go check out, again, Beyond the Whistle, Mary Alex's Twitter. And man, this was fun. Thank you so much for taking the time to do this.
Yeah, it was so much fun. Thanks so much for having me. I mean, it's an honor. I loved it. So thanks so much for having me.
Absolutely. Thank you.